Hello and welcome to my P&O Cruises Belgium and Netherlands 5-night cruise review. I sailed on P&O Cruises Iona on a 5-night sailing to Belgium and the Netherlands in March 2025. If you haven't already, go and check out the vlog series from all the information prior to cruising, including check-in, all the available excursions and what's on, including booking, dining and that ahead of the cruise, through to embarkation day and every day of the cruise vlogs. If you haven't already, go and check them out. But today I am reviewing my time on P&O Cruises Iona during that 5-night sailing. First of all, a bit of background about the cruise. I was a solo passenger. I was staying in a sea view cabin on deck 4. I have cruised with P&O Cruises several times in the past. I think that was maybe my 9th sailing with P&O, but I am a big fan of P&O Cruises, having sailed consistently with them since my first cruise in 2019. I like the P&O Cruises brand. I have sailed on Iona, Britannia and Azura, all very different sized ships. This was my first solo cruise on P&O. I have sailed solo on a previous Princess cruise back in 2021, but otherwise this is my first P&O cruise sailing solo. It was my second time on P&O's Iona. I have sailed on Iona once before in 2022 on a 7-night Norwegian Fjords cruise with my parents. I'll link that video so you can go and check out that vlog series if you're interested in what the fjords is like on Iona. Iona is very much a large cruise ship. Iona holds 5,200 guests at double occupancy. She can hold a lot more with cabins that hold 3 or 4 people, and she can hold 1,800 crew. Iona now does sailings all from the UK. During the summer, Iona sails out of Southampton, doing 7-night round-trip cruises to the Norwegian Fjords. She does Northern Europe cruises like the one I went on, and she also does sort of Portugal, Mediterranean sailings down to the Canaries, and I believe she is starting to do in sort of January of the year a longer cruise out to the Caribbean. So if you don't want to do a fly cruise to the Caribbean with P&O, you have the option to sail round trip from Southampton. We sailed to Rotterdam for an overnight, so we had 2 full days in Rotterdam, and then we had a day in Belgium, docking in Zeebrugge. So I've been to both those ports before. Both those countries are great options in terms of the Netherlands and Belgium. There is a lot to offer, and even if you go back time and time again, there is still always plenty to do. So I thought it was a good option. Straight off the bat, if you have seen any of my vlogs before, I prefer a smaller cruise ship. I know I do. I prefer Azura and Britannia. That sort of grand class cruise ship and royal class cruise ship are my absolute go-tos. They are my favourite, but I do like the facilities Iona has on board, and we're going to talk about that later, because she does have a few amenities that the likes of Azura and Britannia, being older cruise ships, do not have. So I'm going to talk through various different points during this video. I'm going to talk through an overview of what my trip was like. We're going to talk embarkation. We're going to talk about my cabin, the food and drink on board, entertainment, onboard activities, excursions. Would I recommend P&O's cruises, and would I recommend P&O Cruises Iona? The service I had on board. Overview wise, my cruise was a mixed bag. I would definitely say my first 2 days were not the best, and that was a mixture of down to me and down to the cruise. There was a mixture. Overall, I had a good time on P&O's Iona. I had a good cruise. I really enjoyed my time in Rotterdam. I enjoyed most of my dining. I certainly enjoyed all of my extra pay dining options, and I enjoyed my dining in the Pearl restaurant. I didn't have a great experience in the Aqua restaurant during celebration night on the sea day. and I think that probably put a dampener on it. I was disappointed with my breakfast in the quays. There was little bits and pieces that just did disappoint me, and it was kind of down to quality and a little bit of service. But overall, I did really enjoy my cruise. I had some impeccable service from the majority of the staff on board that I encountered were really friendly, engaged. There was just a few bits that definitely tainted my cruise at the beginning of it, and I think if you watch the vlogs you can clearly see that I wasn't particularly happy on probably the first 2 days, and then on to like the third with the breakfast. But otherwise I had a really good cruise. I enjoyed my ports, particularly I enjoyed my ports. I enjoyed most of the dining. My cabin was fine for me the whole way through. We'll talk about that, and you'll probably see that in the cabin tour and disembarkation video, where if you had light sleepers then my cabin probably isn't going to be right for you. But overall I had a good time. I would 100% sail with P&O again. I have a P&O cruise booked, not for a little while. I have a P&O cruise booked for 2027, sailing to completely new ports. I'm very excited about this cruise, but I've got a lot of cruises in between, but that is my next current P&O cruise. Let's move on to embarkation. I embarked P&O cruises on a Thursday from Southampton, and we went through the ocean terminal, which is P&O's usual terminal. I think I've sailed every time from the UK on P&O from that terminal, and I've sailed on Cunard's Queen Anne from that terminal as well. So it's the terminal I have used the most. I got the train from Bristol down to Southampton, and I was slightly early for my embarkation time, but I got dropped off and I was fully anticipating I would be made to stand in wait until my time. And I was fine with that. I just needed to be there because of the trains, and I didn't want to have to lug my suitcase around Southampton. So I fully anticipated having to wait. So I dropped my baggage off. That's super simple, always really easy to do. I then went up to sort of the terminal building, and they were just letting everybody in. They weren't particularly, for me, they weren't checking boarding times. They were just like, yep, carry on. So I think at that time there wasn't that many people around, so they were just letting people on. I didn't have an issue with that, and it was all really quick and really smooth. Embarkation was really quick. There was a bit of a queue to do the check-in at the desks, but once that was clear, it was a breeze through security and then straight onto the ship. I was really happy with embarkation. I, for the first time, embarked from the bottom of the ship. So normally when you go through Southampton, you, at the level of security and the terminal, like the main part of the terminal building, which is upstairs, you do sort of what would be like a jet bridge to the ship, and you embark on usually like deck 6, 7 or 8. But I think because they had so many passengers that you could embark up the top, but you could also embark down on deck 3 or 4 you could embark on. That was really good, and it was a different way because you sort of went down as if you were disembarking, but then you turned a corner and went onto the ship. So embarkation really smooth. Embarkation day is always going to be busy with people not knowing where they're going, especially if they've not been on a cruise ship before. The lifts are going to be extremely busy. And that was probably one of the gripes I had, was with the lift throughout the cruise. That's not P&O's fault, that is cruisers. Some people wouldn't even wait a second for somebody to sort of walk to that lift before they're shutting the doors. That's just really bad cruise etiquette. There's a lot of people who need the lift, and people just need to be a bit more mindful. Yes, it's frustrating if you have to stop on every deck, but you're all using the lifts. You'd be annoyed if people did that to you. So I just think from a cruiser perspective, cruisers need to be a bit more mindful that there are people who actually genuinely need the lifts, whether they have buggies, whether they have mobility impairments, whether they have children. So I would just say, from a perspective of cruisers, need to be a bit more respectful of the lifts. I also had an issue with the lifts on, I think it was like the last day, where the lift stopped. I tried to get out, and before I could even get out they were trying to get in, and I just was like, this isn't cruise etiquette, you know, let people out of the lifts. It's just respectful, it's just manners. Let people out of the lift before you get in. The same, you know, let people off a train before you get on the train, you know, just basic manners that I think a lot of people, or certainly a fair few people, lacked on board. But otherwise, yeah, I use the stairs on embarkation day where possible because it just makes more sense. Or if you need to use the lifts, use them at either end of the ship. Go forward or aft because the midships are going to be the busiest. Embarkation overall was a good experience. The people in the terminal were really friendly, and it's always like embarkation, like the terminal is just such a great atmosphere. Everybody's like excited and buzzing to like get on board and enjoy their holiday. I had no issues with the embarkation process that P&O had done on the day. So yeah, very happy with embarkation. And did I take any pictures? Because that would suggest how long it took for me between getting... Oh, I did. Let's have a look. I took a photo in front of the ship at 1:30, and I was on board by way before 2. So it was probably 15-20 minutes between arriving and getting on board, which I think is really, really good. But yeah, no issues there with embarkation. Next up, let's talk about my cabins. I opted for an ocean view cabin. I went for the saver fare on this cruise, so I just selected an ocean view cabin, and I was then given a cabin around about 6 to 8 weeks before my cruise. I was in cabin 4638, which is a ocean view cabin on deck 4 aft port side. It was a lovely quiet location in terms that wasn't a lot of footfall. There was a crew door close by, and so that did open quite a lot, but it didn't disturb me. A nice quiet corner. Just be aware that on deck 4 the aft lifts don't go all the way down to deck 4, so your closest lifts for me were midship. So that is something maybe to look out for when you are maybe selecting a cabin specifically. Thought my cabin was really nice. There was plenty of storage for me, and I think if there was 2 people there would be also plenty of storage. The wardrobe's really, really good. Plenty of plugs for my needs. Really loved the window seat. You can put the suitcases under the bed for even more storage. There are no drawers in the room, which is a criticism of a lot of people, but I didn't feel as if I needed drawers. There is a wardrobe that is just shelves, and that offers plenty. I also use packing cubes, which I think helps a lot. There's a nice big vanity area, so you can put things on that, and there are lots of cupboards sort of under the TV. I felt that the room was very narrow at the front door, or sort of the cabin door. I love that they already have a built-in night light, so it means I don't have to take one, and that's down by the bathroom door. The bathroom is very nice in terms of size. I really enjoyed the shower. The shower was a good temperature and good pressure. I love the White Company product. Bathroom, again, really good storage in that. I had no complaints about the storage. I did feel that the bathroom needed a really good deep clean, but day to day the cabin was fine. I really liked that my cabin had the bed nearest the window, and so it felt as if there was more space down in sort of the narrower part of the room. With the sofa, there was a good amount of space there. But I did feel the cabin was quite narrow, but down by the bed there was plenty of room to walk around the bed, which I think is the most important thing. And my favourite thing of all was absolutely the window seat. I would really recommend a sea view cabin on Iona. If you maybe cannot stretch to a balcony but you want the natural daylight, I would absolutely recommend an ocean view cabin. My cabin, as I said earlier, I really enjoyed my cabin. The location I thought was really good. It was nice and quiet. There wasn't lots of people walking past as you are maybe if you're more midship, because you're only walking down to that there if you actually have a cabin down there. The only time there was any particular noise was a disembarkation day. I think the noise started about 3:30 in the morning, and I presume it was the crew sort of getting cases ready to get off, because when I woke up and sort of looked out my window, they were taking suitcases off right under me on deck 3. So sort of right below my cabin on deck 3, that was where they were taking the suitcases off. So I presume the noise was around that. I maybe woke up and heard the noise and went back to sleep. So it didn't disturb my sleep very much. But I would say, and I put this in my cabin video, if you are somebody who is a light sleeper, or you have children that are light sleepers and that noise would disturb them, then it's probably not the right cabin for you. But for me, yeah, I'd stay in it again. It didn't disturb me to the point that I'd be like, no, I have to leave this cabin. So All in all, I was really happy with my cabin. I do think the cabins on P&O Iona are really beautifully decorated. I like the decor, very neutral. One thing I think is important to note is that your cabin steward will only come into your cabin and make up your cabin if you have put the magnet outside that says make up my cabin. I forgot on my first port day to put my magnet out, and so my cabin didn't get made up, and that was my fault. I was told it and I just forgot. So a reminder, if you want your cabin made up, definitely put your magnet out before you leave. Next up, let's talk food. With P&O Iona being such a large ship, she has lots of dining options on board. She has 4 main dining rooms, which are included in your cruise fare. She has the Olive Grove, which is included in your cruise fare, but you need to book on the web page when you get on board. They have Taste 360, which is on deck 16, and then they have the buffet, which is again on deck 16. So straight off the bat, I'm not a buffet person. I don't use the buffet. I can't comment on the buffet. I did do the main dining. I ate once in the Aqua restaurant. That was during celebration night on our sea day. And I ate 3 times in the main dining room. I had a breakfast, a lunch and a dinner in the main dining room. I tried Taste 360 on the first day. I wasn't very impressed with the burger, which is a real shame because I normally rate P&O's quick service burgers very well. On Azura and Britannia, I've rated them really well, but that burger was probably I think it was been standing there for a while. It wasn't very nice. It had no taste to it, and I actually left most of it. That put me off Taste 360. I think it also does pizza and like hot dogs in that. I had the breakfast in the quays on my first day in Rotterdam. I liked that they have, along with the options for the breakfast, they also have sort of a station where you can get fresh fruits, breakfast cereals, toasts, coffee, juices, that kind of thing. I liked that. I did not like my pancakes because they were covered in a really cheap chocolate sauce. On my previous Iona cruise, they used to do Nutella, which is obviously a very thick texture, but they've changed to some sort of, I can only describe it as a cheap chocolate sauce. And it was covered in my pancakes because it just covered everything, and so it just ruined it. So I wouldn't recommend that in terms of the chocolate sauce. I think the bit of pancake I tried without the sauce was okay. And I'd probably go with one of the other options if I was to have it again, sort of the bacon or the whipped cream, the golden syrup, something like that. I wouldn't try the chocolate sauce. The Olive Grove, again, which is an included dining option, you just have to book it when you get on board. Really enjoyed my meal there. I had it on my last day and I had lunch, and I had a 3-course lunch, and it was really, really good. Really enjoyed all the food, from the Caesar salad, lamb, was it kebab I had? Something like that. I'll insert pictures what I had. And the dessert. Really enjoyed the Olive Grove. The crew were also fantastic in the Olive Grove. Yeah, the Olive Grove, really enjoyed that. I would say as soon as you're able to connect to the Wi-Fi on the ship, log in and book it. That is what I would say, because it is well worth it. I actually booked it a few days in for lunch and that was fine. So I think it just depends on your sailing and what people are booking, but certainly book early to avoid disappointments. Room service, I didn't use on Iona, so I can't comment on that. Main dining rooms. So as I said, there's 4 main dining rooms on P&O's Iona. There is the Coral restaurant, the Opal restaurant, the Aqua restaurant, and the Pearl restaurant. I ate in the Aqua restaurant once on celebration night, and I was disappointed. I was disappointed in the crew I had, and I was disappointed in the food I had in the Aqua restaurant. And that is saying something, because the menu, I have had that exact menu on Britannia last year in 2024, and the food was phenomenal. It was 10 out of 10. It was perfect. Everything about it was wonderful. The amuse-bouche, the starter, the main, the dessert. I had had that exact menu on Britannia during our Norwegian Fjords cruise in 2024. It was great. And when I saw that menu on the screen that day outside the restaurant, I was like, yes, this is fantastic, I'm so looking forward to dinner, and the food was really disappointing. And I don't know whether that's because of the crew we had or what. So first of all, I'm going to say the main server we had for our meal in the aqua restaurant was not great. It was rude. Appreciate he may have had a bad day, but it was just not what you would expect. We didn't get offered an amuse-bouche. We didn't get offered steak knives for our steak. A majority of the table had steak and not one of us were given a steak knife. And normally, certainly my experience has been on P&O, is if you have a steak in the main restaurant, they come and swap over the cutlery to a steak knife, but that wasn't done. He was quite snappy when he was taking orders. The assistant server was very nice, and I much preferred it when my assistant server came up to me because I was much happier with him. Food-wise, so we weren't given steak knives and we weren't given our amuse-bouche. You know, first world problems and all that, but it's just not what I'd have expected. And each part of the meal, which was the cannelloni for starter, the surf and turf for main, and the chocolate and beetroot tarte, I can't remember what it was, I'll insert it, for dinner, it wasn't as good as my meal on Britannia. That put me off the aqua restaurant, but I will say I had phenomenal company in the aqua restaurant. I sat next to a couple and I talked to them for hours. They were wonderful. The company made up for the service and the food in the aqua restaurant. The other restaurant I ate in was the Pearl restaurant, and I had breakfast, lunch and dinner all on the same day, all in that restaurant. I was really impressed with the Pearl restaurant, both the crew and the food. I think for breakfast and dinner, I booked through the P&O webpage, just walked in straight away. There was no queues at either time I went in. And for each meal I was seated on a table for one, which was really nice. I didn't have to share a table with anybody. The crew were all different, but they were all really nice. They were friendly. The Pearl restaurant I highly recommend. It's my preferred choice, and that is the one on deck 6. The Pearl restaurant definitely made up for the aqua restaurant. Some of the days the included main dining room menus weren't my cup of tea, so I didn't eat there very often. It really just depends on what you fancy. I know some menus I have and there's multiple things I want on the menu every day. Some of the times on Iona there's maybe 1 or 2 things I would have eaten and I didn't really fancy it. So I like the idea of checking the menu to see what you fancy, and if you don't fancy that, then you've got other options. After the included dining, there is then the extra pay dining. And one thing I really like about Iona is she does have a lot of extra pay dining options. There is the Epicurean, where you can have afternoon tea or dinner. You've got the Beach House, which is open for dinner every evening. You've got Sindhu, which is the Indian infused cuisine, again open every evening for dinner. And you have the Keeling Cow. I had afternoon tea at the Epicurean, which was fantastic. It was on the sea day, and I think it was £15. Absolutely well worth it for the afternoon tea. It was a really good quality afternoon tea. Service was really good as well. So Epicurean for afternoon tea I was really impressed with. Keeling Cow was fantastic. I had breakfast there twice and dinner there twice, and it was great. The menu isn't huge, but that's okay because the food is fantastic. I had a different steak for the 2 days I went. Really nice, really lovely, really flavoursome. The onion rings were really crispy, that was great. The service, fantastic. And they went out of their way. On the last evening, I couldn't get into the virtual queue. It said it was full. So I went up to the podium and asked if I could join the queue. And there was, absolutely no problem, popped me on the queue. I did accidentally delete myself from the queue. And managed to get myself back on eventually. And when I went back up when it was my turn, the gentleman was like, "Oh, you did cancelled it." And I was like, "Yeah, my mistake, accident happened." But they were absolutely wonderful in the Keeling Cow. Really, really rate that. And actually really reasonably priced, very reasonably priced for sort of a supplement price to the food you're getting. Breakfast, I don't normally have a full breakfast bacon, sausage and egg kind of thing for breakfast, but in the Keeling Cow it was very nice. I really liked the pastry basket. Definitely a sharer for 2, 1 person. even though it is very reasonably priced, it was too much for me to eat. And then I had the granola on the last day, and that was really nice as well, very tasty, not rushed at all. The mocktail I had on the last night, that was really nice. And the dessert, I had the cheesecake, found absolutely wonderful, really nice cheesecake. So yeah, Keeling Cow I definitely recommend, and for that little bit more money, I think it just makes all of the difference. So if you're wanting like really good steak, I would definitely add into your budget for the Keeling Cow. I didn't eat at Sindhu on this cruise, but I have eaten at Sindhu multiple times on different P&O ships, and Sindhu is one of my favourite restaurants. The food there is always really good. I don't think I've ever had dessert because I'm so full from starter and main. So whilst I didn't have Sindhu on this occasion, I would definitely recommend it. And then finally we have the Beach House, which is the Caribbean, Mexican, Latin American cuisine, which is part of the buffet, although they do have sort of a very sectioned off thing on Iona. And it was just incredible. I loved it. I absolutely loved my time at the Beach House. Again, the crew were phenomenal. I arrived slightly early for my table, that was fine. And bless the manager, he said, "Oh, you're sat next, there's a table with a child sat next to you, is that okay?" And I thought that was a really nice touch, you know, checking whether you wanted maybe a quieter area or whether actually sat next to the toddler was okay. I was fine to be sat next to the toddler, and actually she was very entertaining, but I thought that was a really nice gesture to ask me before I'd got to the table whether that table was going to be okay. Throughout the service they checked on me, checked I was happy with the food. I had fantastic food. The food was 10 out of 10. Really enjoyed all parts of it. I always have the same dessert, which is the rum glazed baby pineapple, because it's just, get it, you'll love it. So Beach House I always recommend, and again I think it was like £10 something as an extra, well worth it. So I would book that in advance wherever possible. Next up, let's talk about drinks. P&O do offer various drinks packages. I'm not going to go into the drinks packages. I don't do a drinks package. I don't drink enough to warrant a drinks package, so there are various websites online that you can sort of put in what you think you drink on a cruise, and it'll tell you whether a drinks package is worth it. It's never worth it for me on P&O. I may have one alcoholic drink a day and maybe one soft drink. It's not worth it for me, but if it's worth it for you, absolutely do it. I was given 2 included drinks during my cruise. The first one, because of my loyalty status with P&O, I get a welcome aboard drink that I can use. It says for the sail away party, but there was no sail away party when we left Southampton, so I just used it one of the other nights, and the crew were happy to take it, and that gives you either a sort of a prosecco or a soft drink. So I had that included drink, and then everybody gets a celebration night drink to use on celebration night. And again, you just exchange the voucher at one of the many bars on board for a prosecco, or I think it was like an elderflower press. There are plenty of bars on board. I'm not going to go into them because I couldn't possibly name them all. Some of the bars I went to were the Crow's Nest, and I think the Emerald bar I went to. I personally think the bars are quite rigid, so that was a bit disappointing, but what I did like was I had a fruit cider in the Emerald bar, and looking at their menu, I really liked that they had a good selection of non-alcoholic and alcoholic. Like for example, a Copperberg, they had an alcoholic version as well as a non-alcoholic version, so I thought that was really good, that they've got the non-alcoholic versions. I had a really nice non-alcoholic drink in the Keeling Cow. Let's talk entertainment. So on Iona, because the ship is so large, they encourage you to pre-book your entertainment in terms of the theatre show, so the headliner theatre shows. The shows that were running during my time on board were Festival and Greatest Days. They were the headliner theatre company production shows. Festival I wasn't that bothered by. I thought there was a lot of music that overtook the performers and you didn't get to see the performers to their best. I did enjoy the Greatest Days show, although I'm not the biggest Take That fan, but I did feel that it was a better show for the performers to showcase what they can do. So I preferred the Greatest Days over to Festival. We also saw Magical Bones, which was a magician. I really enjoyed the magician show. and I saw the Lady Gaga singer. I missed her during the Pink performance because it was only a really late showing, but I saw the Lady Gaga one and that was really good. So overall, theatre was really good. You do have to, as I said, they do recommend you book online ahead of your cruise for the times. I also really liked that they had 3 showings of most of the things. I think the only time they didn't have 3 showings was on Embarkation Day, which was the Pink tribute, which they had 2. But all other shows they had 3, and I really liked that because I prefer a show before dinner. So I like my show around 6:30, 6:45, and then a dinner about 8, 8:30. And I liked that you had the option to do that on Iona, whereas on the smaller ships it's only 2 showings a day. So that was something I really did like. I also saw a boy band music thing in the Sky Dome on Embarkation Day. I thought that was good fun. In terms of other entertainment on board, they have their Horizon newsletter that shows you everything that's going on board. I don't think I really took part in anything. No, I don't think I did. But they have quite a lot going on board for different things. I do recommend the arts and crafts thing. I think that's a really good thing. Most of them are extra pay, I noticed on Iona for like the different pieces, but I did enjoy the arts and crafts on previous cruises, and they have various different pieces, lots for children as well if you have children on board. The cinema, they've got an onboard cinema. I have been to the cinema on a previous cruise but not on this one. I think most of the films are pretty old, but some of them are really good, and I did want to see a couple of them, but times didn't work out. Pool wise, Iona has several pools on board. She has 2 infinity pools. She has the Sky Dome pool, which is a family pool. She has the Beachcomber pool, which is adults only, which I used and it was fantastic. And there are lots and lots of hot tubs around the ship, both on deck 8 as well as the higher up decks. And there's 2 really large hot tubs at the back of deck 8 next to the sunset bar. All the pools were heated that I tried, sort of temperature testing, which I thought was really good, and I had a lovely swim in the Beachcomber pool on the last day. It's adults only, so it was lovely and quiet. I imagine on a sea day it's going to be busy, and the pool isn't particularly big, so you're not swimming for that long before if you're doing lengths, but there was a nice bar up there, so I think it's a really nice place, and I love that they've made it adults only, because when Iona originally came out there were no adults only pools, and both Britannia and Azura, and I think the Ventura also have adults only. So I think even if it's a family friendly ship, it is still important to have an adults only area. One of my favourite features of Iona is the prom deck. I love walking around the prom deck. I did a nice big walk during the sea day, and it's just really nice to be low down getting your steps in, and it's just, you can walk around that way, you're not getting in anybody's way or anything like that. So I really recommend the prom deck for a wander around. The spa on board I have used previously. I didn't use it on this cruise, but I did do a tour on Embarkation Day. The spa is beautiful. The treatments I've had in the past on P&O cruises have always been really good. I've had deep tissue massages, I've had manicures, pedicures, leg therapy. I've had a hot stone massage. I think I had that on Iona a couple of years ago. So certainly all the treatments I've had on P&O cruises have been really good, and the spa on Iona is beautiful. It is probably one of the best spas on board a P&O cruise ship, particularly the thermal suite. It's very nice. I think for a couple of hours it's maybe about £50 per person. Other things, shops on board, they have a Mulberry store, which is certainly something I am a fan of. Didn't buy anything this time, but they had some beautiful handbags in, and they've got lots of shops on board if you do need to pick anything up or fancy anything. In terms of the sort of the day-to-day activities on board, I don't tend to do any of the activities. The only ones I may do, as I said in the past, would be the crafting ones, but certainly I didn't do anything on Iona. Excursion wise, the excursions I did I was very happy with. So I did a introduction to Amsterdam, including a canal boat ride for the first day we were in Rotterdam, and then I went to Kinderjek windmills on the second day. Both those excursions were really good, and I would recommend those excursions. I think if I ever went to Rotterdam again and I wanted to go to Amsterdam, I'd probably do the Amsterdam on your own, and then you've got a full day or a half day to completely do what as you please in Amsterdam. But really enjoyed them. Lots of options for whilst you're in the Netherlands. We were just before the tulip season, so had we have been a bit later, there would have been options to go to which is one of the places I would still love to go. So I would love to do another Netherlands cruise so I can go to Keukenhof. I think it's incredible. But really enjoyed the Netherlands. There is a separate excursion video where I talk through all the excursions available on our cruise. So go to check that out. Cruise line excursions are usually a bit more pricier than if you did it yourself, but certainly for when we were away, I thought they were really convenient because the trains weren't running in either Rotterdam or Zeebrugge to get to Belgium or to Amsterdam. So in that case, you were going by bus, and so I thought the cruise line excursions were really well priced for that and really convenient as well. So I think for our particular cruise, because things weren't running, the trains weren't running, it made a lot of sense to do cruise line excursions. All the excursions were well organised. With P&O, you don't meet anywhere on board to get to the excursion. You meet at the quayside, and when you get off the ship, there are plenty of crew dotted around to tell you what bus you're on, where to go. So that was all really good. I liked on Iona as well, is on the screens by the stairs, it told you what buses were for what excursion. I thought that was a really clever option. But yeah, they were all well organised, really enjoyed them. I'd recommend the excursions I did. The shuttle bus to Blankenberg worked really well. It was really convenient, had a little walk around, but then just got back on board. I've been to Bruges a few times and it's always a nice stop, so I would say definitely go to Bruges. The only thing I would like is if P&O did like an introduction to Ghent or an introduction to Brussels, because those two places weren't on your own, and I just feel like if you're going a bit further afield, I would have liked to have like an intro and then a few hours to explore. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the excursions. But yeah, you can check out the video about our excursions for every excursion available on our cruise. Service. Overall, service was good. The only sort of service I had that was a bit was the aqua restaurant. I think that was just not the great. My cabin steward, whilst I didn't see him very often, was friendly, and when I saw him he said hello. If I was walking down another cabin corridor and a cabin steward was outside, they'd say hello. Staff were friendly throughout the ship, so I was pretty overall impressed with the service on board. The only person was, yeah, the guy from the aqua restaurant on celebration night, but otherwise everybody else was great. Most of the time I managed to get a drink quickly. The bar staff were really attentive, and general staff around the ship we're all good, so no real complaints about the service apart from the aqua restaurant. I'm going to talk a bit about the clientele on board. In terms of our sailing, primarily people were British. It is a British cruise line, so the majority of passengers on board are British. We were sailing outside of school holidays, so there was not many children on board. Most of the people on board were friendly. There were a few issues, as I said earlier, with people being impatient around the lifts, and people just need to be a bit more mindful when they're using lifts to allow time for people to get to the lift. I didn't see anything personally, but I did hear quite a lot of stories about people having been kicked off our cruise ship for fighting. And I must have heard about 3 or 4 different stories. Even one on disembarkation day where a couple had a fight and had to be separated the night before disembarkation day. People getting kicked off the cruise ship because of their bad behaviour. It's not acceptable. Fighting and being aggressive or anything like that is not acceptable anywhere, let alone on a cruise ship where you can't go anywhere. From what I heard, P&O were very strict with those people, and I'm really glad they were, because it's not acceptable. You know, you're going to be, which is the correct thing, you're going to be kicked off at the next port, and if that's on you to get home, you know, that's your problem. Tech-wise, P&O do not have an app. I hear people all the time talk about the P&O app. It's not an app, it is a web page that is accessible once you're connected to P&O Wi-Fi on board. Possibly before when you're in the terminal, but you have to be connected to the P&O Wi-Fi. It is a web page, an intranet. I personally, it has always worked for me. It shows you your dining options, the excursions, what you've spent, spa options, You can book your dining reservations on it. I've never had a problem with it, so it's always worked really well for me. I didn't use the Wi-Fi on board on this occasion. I didn't feel I needed to have Wi-Fi. It was quite nice to switch off on the days like the sea day in the evenings. Would it be nice if P&O created an app? Maybe. I don't know. It's not something that bothers me. I like that you can keep an eye on your onboard spend, and you can then do like a screen grab of it. Would I recommend P&O? Would I recommend Iona? Yes and yes, I would. And I probably would sail on Iona again if the itinerary was right for me, or if I really wanted the parts of that they have on Iona that they don't have on other ships, like the Keeling Cow, that kind of thing. I still really rate P&O. I still rate Iona. I accept Iona is a big ship, and I am not the biggest fan of big ships. I do prefer a smaller ship. I prefer I prefer the Azuras and the Britannias of the world. So if I have a preference on P&O, I will always go for Azura or Britannia, unless the itinerary is such that I'm like, oh, I really need to do this itinerary. It's on Iona. Fine. Overall, I enjoyed my cruise on Iona. I would definitely recommend Iona for a family. She's got lots of family friendly activities and places, but for me, I'm going to stick to the likes of Azura and Britannia. But overall, yeah, I still recommend P&O. I think if you want a good cruise from Southampton at a reasonable price, then yeah, still go with P&O. I would still cruise with P&O. As I said, I've got a cruise booked in 2027, and I would love to do some more Azura cruises around the Med because Azura is my favourite. Overall, I had a great trip. I thoroughly enjoyed the port specifically. I think it was a port-heavy cruise, which I really liked. Yeah, overall, yeah, I enjoyed myself. I was really unsure the first 2 days, but the cruise got better and I think I got out of my head. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed my cruise. I'd recommend P&O. I'd recommend Iona for more of a family trip. I think if you are a couple or a solo, that maybe go for a different cruise line, but it all depends on what itinerary you want. For example, Azura doesn't do these cruises from Southampton, so these types of cruises, you're looking at Ventura, Britannia, or Iona. I'm not sure if Arvia's got any of the shorter cruises booked, but I do like the fact that Iona does these than European cruises. So I would go on Iona again. I really liked my sea view cabin. I'd definitely book that again. I'd stick to the Pearl restaurant for the main dining room, but I would make the most of the Keeling Cow, beach house, that sort of thing. If I was going for the Keys for breakfast, I wouldn't have the chocolate sauce. I'd go for something else. Yeah, I think, you know, it's all just what you prefer and what you try. So I'm not hating on P&O. I enjoyed my cruise. I didn't think I was at the beginning, but overall I did. So there we go. That's my review of P&O's Iona. If you have liked this video, please do like and subscribe. I've got a new Disney Cruise Line series coming very soon, and after that we are heading with Princess to Alaska and Canada for an epic 2-week trip. So lots still to come on the channel this year, as well as next year, lots more to come. So yeah, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon.